So, hello and welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to start with Charvak's Metaphysics. So, what exactly is metaphysics? Metaphysics is basically what is the world means to us. So, it basically deals with the question of what is the world, what is the thing which you call as reality, is something which we see exist or not, or is there something beyond it? So what is the thing which we call as world, is it real or not? So we're trying to deal with such sort of questions. So as we've seen for Charvak, the epistemology lies basically in perception. They are of the opinion that perception is the only valid source of knowledge. So we could see that the Charvak's metaphysics is an outcome of his own epistemology. So his world totally relies upon whatever his perception has offered to him. Like whatever he sees, whatever he has felt, or whatever he has heard of, seen, that is the only thing which he would term it as world. So his world is totally based on his perception. Since he accepts perception as the only Praman, Charvak treats only perceivable entities as realities. So only the things which he is able to perceive are the reality. But as we've seen earlier, our perceivable abilities are limited by our sense organs, and not everything which we call as reality can be termed as one. But however, Charvak's of the opinion that only the perceivable things are realities. Moving on, Charvak maintains that matter is the only reality because it alone is perceivable. Obviously, we can see the matter itself, nothing beyond it. The four perceivable material elements, earth, air, water, and fire, form the fundamental stuff behind the origin of the universe. So, they say that the universe is formed by the four fundamental elements, which, according to Charvak, are earth, air, water, and fire, because these are the only things which Charvak could actually see, which they could actually perceive. This Charvak's metaphysics is a pluralistic as well as materialistic. It's pluralistic in a sense that there are different elements which combine to form the reality. There are different elements which confine and combine to form our world. So it's many things combine to form one. So it's plural as well as materialistic as well. Charvak always upholds the reality of the empirical world, but he rejects all kinds of entities which cannot be perceived through sense object contact. So there are many entities which are so much in our folklore and in our common day-to-day lives, which are termed as real, but according to Charvak, they are not because we cannot actually see them. So basically, these are ghosts, spirits, even God, and other transcendental entities. We have only heard of them. We can't see them, we haven't felt them, we haven't been in the vicinity of them. It's just that we have been accustomed to the belief that they exist, which Charvak says it as totally false. So in this sense, Charvak rejects the transcendental entities, which are God, soul, and everything beyond. Transcendental entities are those which transcend our normal sense experience, yet accepted as realities by most of the Indian philosophical system other than the Charvaks. The other philosophical systems of India basically accept God, soul, and other transcendental entities which are beyond our common perception. So Charvak basically rejects all of them. Immortal spiritual soul is accepted by many philosophical systems for explaining the origin of consciousness as well as to account for the concept of the law of karma, the cornerstone of morality. So, why did the other philosophical systems resort to accepting the transcendental entities? There might have been some basis for their acceptance. So, it has been said that it is because, in order to accommodate the origin of consciousness, as to why did the consciousness erupt, and where did it come from? What is the origin of this consciousness? The philosophical systems accepted transcendental entities also in order to account for the law of karma. Law of karma is basically said to be the moral stone of cornerstone of morality because it is the moral governance due to which things are said to be in order and people are said to be more righteous and be more moral in their conduct. as there's somebody who's supervising for it, somebody who is actually accountable for maintaining all the records of your karma, and nothing you do is just goes for granted. It's everything is accounted for, everything is recorded. So the philosopher systems, in order to maintain the consistencies within their philosophy and to accommodate a spiritual or transcendental entity which maintains it, accommodated God as the creator of the world. God is accepted by some of the philosophical systems as the creator of the world, the moral governor, the one who gives some purpose to life, and the one who saves human beings through the divine grace. So, in the pain of human existence is that we have all been craving for some kind of purpose as to why did we come, or as to why did we were given birth into this empirical world. So, in order to account for that thing, God is said to be the creator of this world and is the one who provides some purpose to every human life. He's also the one who saves us whenever we are in some sort of misery. So Charvak rejects both of these entities on the grounds that they cannot be perceived. It's totally true that we cannot perceive God. We have just heard of him. We have just heard of him from scriptures, from our elders, and also from maybe some experiences where you would have felt the presence of God. But for Charvak, it is said that since they have not perceived it, a human cannot perceive God. It is not real. Instead, he tries to put forward his own worldly view, morality, and idea of well-being purely on materialistic grounds. So for Charvak, as we've seen earlier, it was just make merry and chill. He was of the opinion that you have to be happy and you have to satiate your senses no matter what the conditions are, and never think about what would happen in the future or what would happen after birth and all sort of things uh, which have been propagated by earlier philosophical systems and which were said to be a part of the Indian scriptures. However, Charvak rejects all of them. Charvak also rejects soul. So, for most Indian philosophical systems, accept soul as a separate entity from the material body. So, they say that the soul is different and the material body is different. These are two different things. You cannot combine them as a single entity. They treat soul as a substratum of consciousness. So, soul is the seat of your consciousness, which is said by the Indian philosophical systems. Charvak, however, refutes the existence of an eternal, unchangeable, and immortal soul, which is independent of body and as it cannot be perceived. So, what was said by the Indian philosophical systems was that a soul is different from our body, and the soul is actually the substratum of our consciousness. It is from the soul that our consciousness emerged, and the soul is basically responsible for our existence, and this soul is eternal, unchangeable, and immortal. However, Charvak says that soul cannot be independent from a body because you cannot perceive your soul, right? You've just heard of it. Charvak accepts consciousness as a byproduct of matter. He gives his theory of Bhuchaitanyavad. So, what he basically means from Bhuchaitanyavad is that your soul is not different from your body. Soul is actually your consciousness is not different from the matter. The consciousness is actually a byproduct of matter. These are not two different things. These are actually uh, things which are merged within the matter. Your consciousness is a result of your matter and not the other way around. Denying the existence of an eternal soul as the substratum of consciousness. So, what Charvak says that it is the matter which basically is the cause or is the origin for the consciousness. The soul is a result of your matter, and it is not because of the eternal soul that the consciousness emerges. He terms it as Bhuchaitanyavad. Charvak also views that the day or body is identical with the Atma or soul. So he gives the theory of Deh Atmavad. The Atmahavad basically means that as long as the body is alive, consciousness is present in it, and when it's not, the consciousness is absent. So, whenever you see a dead body or a dead person, you could see that there's just an empirical body lying around. There's no sign of senses, sense organs. Like there are sense organs, but you cannot perceive them as such that it actually exists. And what Charvak wants to say that even when the body is alive, the consciousness is present. So, and when the body is dead, there's no sign of consciousness. So, it would mean that your consciousness only exists when there is the lively of a body. So, whenever your body is alive, the consciousness is present. If the soul is different from the living body, it must be perceived independently of the body. But we never perceive any internal independent soul. Our common experience also proves that consciousness is a quality of body. What Charvak says is that he has attributed consciousness to our body. He has basically uh, termed consciousness as just another adjective of our body. Statements like I'm fat, I'm lame, etc. implicate the identity of self with body. So we are so attached with ourself, with our bodies, that we have actually derived the sense of self from our bodies. And what Charvak says in his theory of De Atmavad is that uh, we have never perceived an eternal or any independent thing called as soul. It is what we have seen as ourselves, or what we have identified as ourselves, or the soul is something which actually lies in our own bodies. So soul is basically just any quality of our body, and soul according to Charvak is a conscious body, and a consciousness is only there till the time we are alive. As and when we're dead, the consciousness just goes, it vanishes. In order to prove Bhuchatanyavad, in Bhuchatanyavad, Charvak says that consciousness is just a byproduct of the matter. Charvak gives the following examples in order to augment his arguments. Charvak says that just as betel, areca nut, and lime together acquires a reddish color, and just as yeast and molasses produce an intoxicating quality. So he says that similarly, a particular composition of material elements produce consciousness, though they separately don't possess it. What he means by this statement is that, for example, just take betel, areca nut, and lime uh, distinctly, like they are taken just one at a time. So distinctly they don't have a consciousness, or they don't have any certain quality which would give or enhance their appearance or thing as such. But whenever we mix them in certain proportion, it leads to a different color or different texture or taste, which gives it its uh, very distinctive quality. So, what he means is that invariability is only a psychological necessity. He rejects the causal theory. He rejects that soul is he rejects that soul is something which exists independently. He says that soul is something which is because of our attributes of an composition of different elements which come together in order to form the soul. So it's just a composition of matter in different proportion which makes soul, and which we identify as something as a quality of our own bodies. Similarly, on lines of his metaphysics, Charvak rejects God. His views on God are that the supposition of an unperceivable creator is unnecessary, and God's existence cannot be proved through inference or verbal testimony. As we've seen earlier, Charvak had already rejected other sources of Praman, and he just accepts perception to be the only true valid source of knowledge. So, in similar terms, he rejects God as something who is or which is unperceivable, and it is utmost unnecessary to have a creator who is unperceivable. God need not be accepted as the efficient cause of the world, as the basic material elements themselves have an inherent tendency to combine to form the world. So, what he means that since we have read the example of areca, betel nut, and lime, whenever they combine a certain proportion, it would lead to a different texture and a reddish color. What he means by this statement is that every element has a kind of swabhav or a kind of nature in it, and when we combined all of them in certain proportions, we could get a mix of something which could be termed as the essence of this world. So God need not be the efficient cause of this world, and the basic elements themselves have an inherent tendency to combine to form what we see as this world, which is called the naturalism or Swabhavvad of Charvak. So these four elements come in different proportions. The four elements which were accepted by Charvak are earth, air, water, and fire. So these four basic elements combine in different proportions to form the world which we see, and there is no supposition of or efficient need of God in order to create this world. This is a very mechanistic approach which Charvak says. Further, he denies the existence of a conscious purpose behind the origin of the universe. He says that there was no basic or there was no efficient cause for the origin of the universe, and he says that it's just purposeless and explains it as a mere mechanical or accidental combination of material elements. So what we see as world is not something which has a very defined purpose or to fulfill. It is just a mechanical composition of earth, air, water, and fire. This mechanism can be said to be this mechanism is said as Yadrachavad, which is the mechanical combination of elements. So with this we've come to an end of Charvak's metaphysics. We'll learn about the liberation and his other criticisms and thoughts on Charvak in the next video. Till then, see ya. Bye.